we need the. Okay, thank you.
Need a heads up.
We ready now? This is all, Mr., what is that, a Mr. or Mrs.? What gender is that?
I don't know, whatever.
Everything's gender neutral. now.
Yeah. Oh, well. Okay, call the meeting to order. We need to approve the agenda as printed. Second. Motion been made and seconded to approve the agenda as printed. All in favor signify by saying aye. Public comment on agenda items.
No public.
Hearing none, seeing none. Communications to be shared by the solid waste board. I have one comment this morning before we start the meeting. Apparently there's appears to be a difference of opinion of how we run this budget, how we put it together, and how we formulate it and then present it back to the executive for his and whatever. So I guess until we get that straightened out with the executive's office and whatever, we're still gonna go through the same format. But there, you know, I haven't had the opportunity to talk to the executive, but there appears to be some disagreement on how we set up this budget and how we present it and whatever. So I don't know where that's going, but it's like, it's a little different. We've only been doing it this way since beginning of time, so somebody must have another opinion or something, I don't know. Get to the bottom of it and whatever, but we're gonna still just go through. John and the staff has done a lot of work preparing all this stuff, so it doesn't pay to argue over the schematics of things, just move forward and whatever, so.
We go back. Talk about it in open session, we're gonna go into closed session for some discussions, and then when we come back to open session. There's an action item on here, I think we're just gonna. Probably just stay silent on that.
Yeah, that's fine, but at some point in time, legally, we have to authorize it. We have, you know, that whatever we put together and whatever, well, how it's voted on as it moves up the food chain.
Right.
That's,
And maybe we just do that after,
yeah,
we go through this, we'll meet with the executive on the 25th of August. And then maybe after that, then.
yeah,
Once we kind of have a final lesson from them, and then. Have the board take their final action.
right. I just want to make sure that the board has. It continues to have the input that they need to have on how, you know, how the money's spent here. I just don't want it to fly away somewhere, whatever. So I think that's a fair assessment and whatever. So is there anybody else on the? No?
No, we do have, Chris Anderson is kind of in a holding pattern. If we get into some discussions on some of the proposed projects that, I would like to add into our budget, he's available to connect in via Zoom and help explain things, so. We'll cross that bridge if we get there. So. Anyways.
Okay.
You ready for number
Sure.
5?
Yes. Budget workshop.
Okay. So did everybody get a copy of the budget packet? Then we had them emailed and tried to get them hard copy mailed as well. Sometimes it's a challenge to get them to you in time, but so I guess this is our normal format. Probably a few less pages than maybe normal, but we're trying to streamline things as best as possible. Yeah, myself and our staff here have gone through a lot of legwork to put this document together within our financial accounting system. So we worked over the past 6 to 8 weeks on pulling together all the information we need to present a budget to you for 2023 and tipping fees. So this cover letter just highlights a few things that are included in this budget. So probably the biggest thing is we're tweaking the table of organization slightly. We're taking a foreman position and creating a supervisor position out of it. And then you're adding another equipment operator. to the mix, so we'll have 5 full-time equipment operators and a supervisor of the 5 equipment operators. So we're adding 1 to the overall staffing, so 16 full-time to 17 full-time. One other big item, that's built into this budget currently is landfill gas power. We had budgeted 1.52 million in revenue for 2022. With engine 5 going down with a failure, that is no longer achievable. We're hoping, like I mentioned at the last meeting, to end up somewhere north of $1 million in revenue this year. If everything holds together, but with the current power purchase agreement, we've estimated, projected at about 400,000 in revenues for next year. And that doesn't include the renewable attributes. We'll have to keep working on the renewable attribute side, and that may end up adding to some of the mix, but some of the options that we were looking at probably in 2024 and beyond. So I think next year is just gonna probably be just selling power to WPS and dealing with this. So that's a big decrease. That's you know, over $1 million on the bottom line.
Roger. Going back to the first item, could you explain briefly the difference between a foreman and a supervisor?
Sure. A foreman acts more as like a kind of a lead worker of the operators, but doesn't have the direct supervision, doesn't have, you know, the review, doesn't conduct the reviews, doesn't take care of any disciplinary action directly with the employees. So this is going from a foreman to a supervisor, move up the salary range a couple of
Do you
years.
have a foreman now that will be promoted to the?
That is the plan.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Um,
And the additional equipment operator, is that to cut down on overtime mainly?
It is to cut down on some overtime, but the problem we're continuing to run into is we don't have any summer help this year. We're struggling to keep up. I don't know if you've noticed the condition of the exterior of the building, and the lawn mowing is not the norm. We haven't had a chance to even mow the hill yet because we just don't have the staff available to do it. We had a resignation, another one. The newest employee is gonna leave August 17th is his last day. We've also have someone out on workman's comp injury, and it could be for an extended period of time. You throw in summer vacations and whatnot. We're running with 2 people this week. So, we just don't, there's more things that we're doing now than we did, you know, 5-6 years ago. There's more duties to keep operations flowing on the transfer station side, on this side. We're trying to internalize more things, so an extra operator would certainly help out. You know, throughout the year to allow us to complete those tasks, so.
Okay, thank you.
On the interest side of things, we got a little better projections from the finance department, so based on our cash reserve and our escrow dollars, we're looking at projected interest of about 407,000, which is about 200,000 more than what we had projected in 2022. We've increased the signing municipalities, projected refund, just based on commodity markets. We had put 140,000 in potential surplus commodity revenues that would be returned to the municipalities for 2022, and we're upping that to 200,000 in 2023. And then we've got a number of capital outlay purchases that are summarized on page 19. That total $2,259,000. Now, the way capital works in our budget is, you know, since it's you know, an item that meets a certain cost criteria and a life span criteria. The way the accounting system handles it is on a depreciation basis, so it's shown in the budget, it'll come out of the budget, and then it'll be adjusted via depreciation from year to year to year, depending on the life of the different capital projects. So we can talk about that as we get further into the package, but there's some, bigger ticket items that we want to try to address to keep things as functional as possible here in the department. So the way this sits right now, in the budget detail, which is on pages 11 through 18. So this is what the printout we get from our financial software. We roll up all our cost centers and have a solid waste fund document. What we're showing is projected revenues of $9,511,300. Projected expenses of $13,095,672. If we back out capital outlay, $2,259,000. We back out debt principal, this is the last year, 2023, we'll have debt on the single stream facility at Outagamie County. We back that out. And then, how we've been handling long-term care of the sludge site and co-disposal site, because we submit expenses to the DNR and then we get reimbursed from escrow account funds. We back those out as well. So it ends up the way I have it currently set up in the software. We're looking at a deficit of $409,672, and I guess what that would be covered by is worst case would be our retained earnings. We have to draw from the retained earnings to create a zero balance and budget. What we built in on the tonnage side of things is a $2 per ton increase in the solid waste tipping fee. So we'd be going from $48 a ton gate rate to $50 a ton gate rate. And then our municipality rate, or a rebate rate, if you want to call it, would be $3 less than that, or $47 a ton for our municipality. And we're not proposing any change to the recycling tipping fee, which will remain at $5 a ton for our roads. So I guess the rest of these documents, just got a cover sheet as the second beginning part. Page 1 gets into the documents that will be included in the county board budget packet. I'm not sure of the format for 2023. 2022, we were still an appendix in the overall county board's budget. But this is our budget narrative, which has our mission statement and then descriptions of our programs, which include solid waste transfer and disposal, recycling, transfer and processing, HHW facility and diversion programs, along with our landfill gas collection and utilization system and our closed landfill environmental monitoring. The next page 3 is our table of organization, which shows the increase or the change under solid waste operations manager, changing that foreman to a solid waste supervisor, and then adding a 5th equipment operator that would be a direct report to the supervisor. Page 4 is
Feel free to ask if anybody has a question on any part of this or whatever. Just
So
you can ask now or
the extra person shows up as an equipment operator. That's where we're adding the
yes,
person.
exactly. Yeah, we considered some other options, but just for continuity, to have them all be on the same level of abilities. being able to run the equipment, all the equipment that we have. That seemed to be the best, option for, I guess, keeping our operational efficiency.
Right,
Paul,
oh, I'm sorry,
Oh,
Paul. Mike, go ahead, guys.
deferring to Mike.
Microphone, okay. Real quick, landfill, can we talk about specifics?
Yeah.
Or do we
Oh,
want?
we're not
to
even
post
to
that?
that yet.
Yeah, I know, I'm sorry. I didn't want. Goes right, that's how it goes, he's way ahead of the game. Well, do you, that's what I'm saying, you wanna talk about that in close, when we're talking about tipping fees and so on?
Yeah, some of that stuff, perhaps.
Alright, we'll wait. So, Paul?
Okay, I suppose I was just asleep, but, as you, were proceeding through the, budget, projections, I came across, or I wanted to, present to, Solid Waste Board, particularly, with our new members, that, for years, I've been advocating putting the solid waste board, solid waste department on the organization chart. And with the new county executive, that was accomplished in the 2022 budget. And I just had made copies of the county organization chart, which depicts the solid waste management board supervising the solid waste department, which heretofore has never been acknowledged in the budget. And second, of course, is that the solid waste department is considered a line department within the organization chart. And that's all in the 2022 budget that was passed for this current year. And when we're beginning to look at our organization chart and considering those changes and adjustments, I thought I would help put that into perspective and share that and remind many members that this is something I guess maybe I started needling on this back in 2006. And then we were finally put into the appendix. And I heard rumblings from the director that he's uncertain whether we made the extra step into the overall budget or whether we'll be continued to
Yeah,
be a stepchild.
yeah, and I'm unsure of how that's gonna be addressed in 2023. I guess I'll find out when I find out. So this is a table of organization classified position table that HR puts together. So it just shows our adopted budget, PO and the positions and the numbers. It shows us removing a foreman, adding solid waste supervisor, and then adding that fifth equipment operator during the 2023 budget process. So our final, what we would propose to the executive would be 17 full-time employees plus one. I guess the next page is 5, 6, and 7. Talk about the accomplishments in 2022, and then follow up with 2023 goals. We tried to encompass, a lot of these kind of carry over from year to year, but there's some new ones. Obviously, we continue our partnership with, regional partners, Brown and Outagamie, keep solid waste tipping fees, as low as possible for our users. We, operate a transfer station for solid waste, accepting materials from local customers and loading and hauling to Outagamie and Brown County landfills for disposal. We're gonna, obviously continue that in 2023 as well. We operate a single stream recycling transfer facility for recyclable materials from our customers, and we load and haul those to Outagamie County, Tri-County Recycling Facility for processing. We, our staff, meets regularly with the Tri-County Recycling team and participates in the, assists with the operations, outreach, education, and special projects. We continue to perform our DNR required long-term care, closed landfill, environmental monitoring and maintenance at, both the Snell Road landfill and the 2 sites at Sunnyview landfill here. We, try to be as efficient as possible processing our signing municipality single stream materials at the Tri-County Recycling Facility, and market them, as successfully as possible. With domestic sales, which allow signing municipalities to comply with Wisconsin's recycling law and earn the maximum amount of revenues to offset recycling program costs. The way things are going thus far in 2023 are looking good, similar to what we saw in 2020. I'm sorry, in 2022, similar to what we saw in 2021. We continue to operate a landfill gas collection and utilization system. Sunnyview and Snow Road landfills. Gas collected from the Sunnyview landfill is combusted in 3 engines currently, and electricity is sold to the local utility. One of the it is directly used in 1 boiler at the highway department, but that is very limited, and we're gonna have to have discussions whether or not we continue that program in 2023. And then any excess landfill gas is combusted in the candlestick flare here at Sunnyview. We've been trying to keep as many engines running as possible, but periodically you will see the flare operating here when staff are out of town, unavailable on the weekends, on vacation, that sort of thing. So,
So have we written off engine number 5? It's not functioning, and there's no plan to restore it or repair it.
yeah, there's no plan to replace it, repair it with an engine of that size. One of the things that both an Eco Engineers is going to be looking at in their report that they'll present at the next meeting is whether or not is there an option to buy another small engine, buy another 312 like engine 2R, and then phase out engine 3. That's this one. But
Boy, and we were so smart when we moved up to a bigger engine. When we bought it.
well, when we had enough gas, it worked pretty well. It was temperamental, and it was not, I guess, not quite what we were sold, but we had,
I remember it was a problem child from the start.
Yeah.
Get it going.
so.
Doug?
Are there 2 questions? One, is there any value to that engine
Mhm.
or to anybody else? Parts is parts. I don't know if there's.
Yeah, engine 5, we've had some discussions with Clark Energy and Energy Dynamics, which are the 2 companies that we buy parts and equipment from. Clark Energy had limited interest in it, but Energy Dynamics is actually interested in buying the whole skid from us. And then taking it all apart, remanning the parts and reselling parts. So we're in the progress of trying to figure out value for that, but we should get some value out of it.
And I thought, didn't we lose 1 mechanical technician? And I see on our chart that we have 2. Did we hire another person for that?
No, it's still on the table of organization. It's
We
posted.
only have one, that's why we're running the flare on weekends. We hope to acquire a second one. Is that the plan? Okay.
Yes, yes. Okay, yeah, and Snow Road landfill gas is just combusted with a flare. It's low flow, poor quality, old gas, so that's how we've handled it since 2012. Landfill gas pipeline compliance, activities continue. Make sure we meet the terms of Public Service Commission operation and safety requirements. That is a quarterly challenge. They're very particular, and so we have to make sure we're staying on top of all the little things that we need to comply with in that regard, but USDI helps us out with that. We operate a seasonal household hazardous waste collection facility. It's currently staffed by Veolia to provide environmentally safe disposal options for county residents. I had a meeting yesterday with the executive and the public works group department heads, and before the meeting started, Executive Damo commended us for our product exchange room that we have with our HHW facility, which we've been operating for many, many years, where we offer citizens the ability to reuse some chemicals that people drop off instead of paying for Veolia to dispose of them. It saves disposal costs and gives opportunity for reuse of chemicals that can be your weed be gone and your paints and varnishes and that sort of thing. Come in and then go in the exchange room and then go out. So you really like that that outside the box thinking that we've had here in South. Yeah, yeah. We continue to operate electronic waste. So e-waste, TVs, computers, electronics, household rechargeable battery and lamp recycling programs for our residents. We continue the deer carcass disposal program to minimize the spread of CWD in Wisconsin. We continue our partnership with UW Oshkosh for the beneficial use of yard waste and organics. We grind all that material up, which we're getting a lot of it because of the storms in recent weeks. We grind it up and it's a feedstock for the UW Oshkosh biodigester. We continue our management of our solid waste department website and Facebook page. With the addition of our communications and program development specialists, we've added additional solid waste department media accounts for Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and YouTube. So we got a pretty nice presence on social platforms for our department. So,
At one of our meetings, could we have an instruction on all of those media outlets? I mean,
you're gonna do a dance ball?
I've been on this board for a length of time, and I'm not particularly interested in social media forum. My wife does all those things, but I think this is probably applicable to my service on the Public Safety Committee too. There are outlets that are out there for our committee, and I have no clue what it is or what we're saying, and that's where we're getting, or should be getting, some feedback. So perhaps with the recommendation that perhaps down the line, you can have our educated specialists give us a presentation so that us
Sure.
from the old century could keep up with the new changes.
Okay. Yeah, Kathy's already jotted that down, so we'll add that as a future agenda item.
Yeah, and I'm thinking for timing wise, just knowing, and this will be on the next page, we'll be launching an app for phones for scanning recyclable items, like I could scan this right now, take a picture, and it'll tell me how to recycle it. That's going to be a tri-county program. We're planning to launch that in November publicly, because that's National, Recycle America Day in November. So at that point, we could certainly do a tutorial for our social media presence and show you how to operate some of those other things and show you how to operate that app as well.
I'm good.
We're also gonna limit that educational opportunity to strictly to solid waste and recycling, right? We're not gonna go out into the universe of unreality.
So, yeah.
Try not to. So we continue, we also continue with our free seasonal drop-off program for holiday lights, recycling, and Christmas tree, disposal programs for county residents. We continued our partnership with the county health department. Outagamie County Recycling and Solid Waste, Outagamie County's Health Department, Pick and Save Pharmacies to provide free medical sharps drop-off program for Winnebago County residents. One of the new things that we established this year was a used cooking oil recycling program. So we have a little container on site that if people are doing some outdoor frying or whatnot, we have an outlet for used cooking oil at the drop-off site here. We continue to coordinate operations with parks on Kenroe Conservation Park operations at the closed Snow Road landfill. We do need to try to get a meeting with the parks director and whatnot to figure out how the maintenance costs are gonna be addressed currently and moving forward, so.
Yeah, I was going to, put on the table the idea that, it's been rumored that, Parks doesn't want to carry us, in their budget, because they're envious of our independent income and, would like to transfer, that expense back to us. But my commentary there going forward is, let's just give them the money to maintain the facility. And they've got the workers and the equipment, and we'll give them the cash to do the job so that they don't have to burden their budget. We can transfer it between departments. I think that would be a happy solution.
Well, we already have kind of a proposal on the table for the Parks Committee that the Solid Waste Board acted on that I think we need to further discuss, and then if the new Parks Committee is not in agreement with that, then we'll have to, I guess, bring something back for the Solid Waste Board to consider. I mean, it's really small amounts. I mean, they're looking at, $3,000 to $4,000 a year and, in mowing, for their seasonal people to come over there and take care of that. So it's not a huge amount. And I've told them, if we're looking at big changes, like if we're gonna, spend, $5,000 on this or $10,000 on that, we're not gonna burden the Parks Department with those things. We'll handle it internally here before we proceed.
So what you're saying is a director change, but the pettiness is continuing. That basically. Sorry.
Yeah, so just for the new members and whatever, we worked a long time on that park idea and whatever we spent. Probably in excess of $1 million from start to finish. And then our intent was to hand it over to the parks because that's what they do. They somehow or other in the end, they drop the ball. They don't want to put the $3,000 or $5,000 in their budget because we got too much money. So they get the park. And then it's like, now it's like, we don't want anything to do that's too much and whatever. So it's like, I don't get that mentality and whatever, but whatever it is, I agree with Paul. It's like, forget arguing, but Doug, sorry.
Well, no problem. One, I brought up possibly turning this into a park at a county board meeting. And got my head bit off because the parks doesn't have any money. They've got way too many parks. They don't want any parks. They ought to sell half of their parks and whatever. So, possibly coming from the Parks Board versus the Parks, management, whatever. The other thing, have we ever looked at a lawn maintenance company whatsoever? And the reason you mentioned the bushes and the lawn mowing here, we're kind of looking at an additional employee just so we can do that. As tough as it is to get employees, I think it would at least be worth seeing what's out there. If somebody came in, a lawn care company that just came in when needed and took care of it, and we hand them a check versus a additional full-time employee and workers' comp and insurance and all that sort of stuff. And maybe we just pay somebody to take care of the park over there. And I don't know if that's the answer. I just think it's at least worth looking into.
Kathy and I have talked about that as a short-term solution. Fortunately, we had one of our, environmental techs that was willing, had a little time and said, I'll run the zero turn a couple afternoons and mow this. So last week he did that. Pat volunteered. Airport is offered to, once they get things cleaned up with EAA, to send their seasonal over here to help us out mowing, just the main ground. But what needs to get mowed is the hill, which is a big undertaking that I don't think the lawn maintenance companies would have anything to do with.
They don't have the equipment for that.
No, we have the equipment, we just don't, the resources, the person who operates the equipment is,
I'd like to watch Pat going up and down the hill just to ensure the equipment.
Mike has his hand up. Okay, Paul.
Don't you have authority to hire temporary employees? I know we went through this when, the executive hired the temporary employee, of his choice. I think that also kind of trickles down to department heads. So if you're in need of, you have the equipment and everything else, you only need a body to cut the grass.
There are
Why
no
don't we-
bodies.
there's no bodies.
There's no bodies.
Yeah.
There's no bodies. You can't hire them to wash the car,
Right,
mow the lawn, flip burgers, there ain't no bodies.
unless the pay goes up.
Yep.
If the pay goes up, then there would be some bodies.
Well, you got the pay.
So,
Mike?
anyway,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like Doug's idea, actually. I mean, that at least gives us, takes the pressure off and trying to, there's priorities here for what the current staff should be doing and going along. So I maybe for the long term, I actually like that idea. The parks thing is, I mean, if you recall, when we were talking about this, I think one of my main concerns really was, hey, this is a park, we spent $1 million on it. Is anybody gonna go to it? Are we gonna have buy-in from the Parks Department who actually market it and whatever? And it looks as if not only are they neutral on it, they are literally seem to be upset that they have $1 million park that they now have to, without caring about the benefits of it. Is that pretty much
yeah,
it?
I'm not getting that from the department staff. It seems to be coming from the committee. So.
Oh, okay, so this is kind of a separate, I would quite frankly like to have this as a, agenda item. To literally discuss the whole situation.
It will be coming up, I think,
Yeah.
after. we made somewhat of a proposal to them, so Bill, this is it, let's.
Well, I'd like to talk about the broader issue, because I don't care if we spot $5,000. Again, if they're not marketing it as a park and nobody's going there and all this stuff that we talked about, that quite frankly was bothering me from the beginning, is we're investing all this money. When we turn it into a park and nobody goes to it and the county doesn't even want to be a park and it's just sitting there, then we made a mistake, quite frankly. If it's a park that nobody's using and nobody's going to, and the county park system doesn't give a damn about, then quite frankly, we made a mistake by spending $1 million on it. We could have shut it down and.
Yeah, but we did have, I mean, we worked hand in hand with the Parks Department, the committee throughout the process. We didn't just out of the blue build it and say,
Oh,
oh.
I know, but now they're
Now there's.
not holding up their,
Yeah,
yeah, well. With commitments come responsibilities, and maybe they need to be reminded, this was a commitment they made. Well,
Yeah, well, we can just retake control of the park and we can showcase it as a byproduct of our landfill operations for 4 decades. And have that as a demonstration of revitalization and reusability of deteriorated land, as well as when it comes to looking at those numbers of reduced income from electricity generation, we can follow through with the idea of producing electricity and running our administration building with the power that we generate from the gas conversion to electricity. And we can present that as a demonstration project of accomplishments of reusing the landfill operation, as well as ideas we had talked about before of running gas over to Parkview or to the Expo Center, and perhaps generating some electricity to operate those facilities, and under the umbrella of a demonstration project, we could leap our day-to-day operations into a model for the rest of the nation to reclaim their landfill operations. I think that would be worth a consideration.
I just want to share with Mike that I think, like we had said, that the staff isn't, the county board had 18 brand new members this year out of 36. So that committee has changed drastically in the last 6 months. I believe it's a little bit more of a committee issue, and maybe they don't completely understand the intent 2-3 years ago when we worked on it. So I ain't saying we can fix it. I'm just saying I think that's.
And I've had discussions with the new parks director about this, and we just haven't found the time to get our groups together, and so.
Fair enough, but I do think it is time for an update. I would like to know what's been going on in the past 3 years in terms of what is our attendance there? What are the plans? What are the future goals for that, and where the Parks Department fits in or doesn't fit in, and if the county board committee doesn't support it, staff is gonna be pretty much hamstrung anyway, so. We better, I'd rather get a little bit more ahead of it than keep reacting to what they're doing.
Point noted. Okay, where were we? 18 here. So we're working toward completing an evaluation of our gas system. You know, where do we go forward? Right now, we're on a track to continue power generation and then look to come up with the best plan to sell renewables to maximize our revenues, but also maintain our regulatory compliance with our air permit. So that'll be discussed at a future meeting. I guess I'm combining 21 in there too. Stormwater, we still need to circle back with Rattler Corporation and kind of get to hopefully an end with the stormwater evaluation at our sites. And get some sort of clarity from the city of Oshkosh. Agreed to what the charges are gonna be moving forward. This is a big hitter in a number of departments, obviously parks and airport. Two big ones, facilities. These stormwater costs keep going up year after year after year, and in our particular case, there's not a whole lot of water from our sites that actually hit city of Oshkosh controlled, maintained systems, so that one still needs a little work to get to an end point with that. The Snow Road landfill groundwater investigation work tasks, that's a work in progress. We have a meeting next week with the DNR to talk through updates and give them our plans for work to be completed this fall. I had already touched on 21 here. The next meeting will have a full presentation and then we'll be talking more about options for the renewables moving forward. And the one thing we just completed the site work on is completed a groundwater monitoring well network reduction project. So we abandoned 18 monitoring wells, redundant monitoring wells at the site, groundwater, like around the perimeter, old wells that are no longer monitored on a regular basis or part of the monitoring program. So we abandoned those. We replaced a couple of wells that we're still using, but have, they've been around since the early 80s. So they needed some maintenance work. So that'll reduce our monitoring costs as a result of the reduction in numbers moving forward for the site here. So moving on to goals and objectives, some of these are repeats. Obviously, we want to keep doing what we're doing on the transfer station side of things for waste and recycling, residential drop-off areas of the landfill, HHW facility, and various other recycling diversion programs. One of the things that we need to look at more closely and consider moving forward is, we had a emergency backup generator system installed here at the admin building back when it was built in the 80s, where if we lost power here, we could run a natural gas power generator to keep our scale and office shop operational. With the expansion of this building and the age of that piece of equipment, we're looking at a replacement of that generator system for this facility, as well as the transfer station now. That's changed quite a bit over the years, but now with compactors, if we lose power at the transfer station, there's really no way to load trucks and move waste. So power is going to be out for an extended period of time. We want to take a look at an option where we could add some backup generator system there to allow us to keep operating, keep the waste and recyclables flowing. We can only store so much a 1 day period of time, and that building is full if we're not moving material. So we want to consider options for that, and we have capital, included in the budget for those two.
You might wanna look at. Like a mobile system too, to where, because sometimes power will go off on one side or the other side, but I don't know what those costs are or whatever, but that may be an option.
I guess one of the things that I wanna look at is at least evaluating, options for a new transfer station. And, resource recovery park. May end up modifying this item a little bit, from the recent discussions with our consultant. There's some dollars that I want to talk about adding in, that would hit this, goal item. Taking a look at more like big picture master planning of this campus. For the next 10 to 20 years. And see what makes the most sense. So I'll be proposing some additional engineering dollars at the end of things here. We want to keep continuing with our collaboration with our regional program staff. Developing long-term operational plans, financial planning estimates, and capital projects for efficient operations of solid waste and recycling programs. We have regular meetings with both the solid waste portion of the group and the recycling portion of the group. Regular updates to make sure we're all on the same page with how things are operating and how things will continue to operate moving forward. That includes some planning work that was done to help develop our budget, figure out where the waste is going, the quantities. We'll get more into that in closed session. We're going to continue operation of a gas collection and utilization system to try and offset as much of the expense as we can while maintaining our air permit compliance. With that comes continued operation of the gas pipeline, sending the gas from Sunnyview to Snell Road, and operating that in accordance with PSC requirements. We always have to keep taking care of the closed landfill sites, so long-term care, monitoring, and maintenance. I guess this will hopefully be something that we continue moving forward with, but operation of the Ken Robo Conservation Parks with the Parks Department. Continued Tri-County discussions with for sustainable public outreach and educational programs. Both Kathy and Jessica are involved with the Outagamie and Brown County group for that. This is is this the app you're talking about, the Better Bin? So the Better Bin smartphone app to the educational resource portfolio for residents to identify and learn how to recycle, dispose of products via UPC barcode scans. That will be added this fall. And other thing that's being developed is through the Recycling Tri-County Partnership is a master recycling pilot program where citizen advocates would complete that program, training process, and then become recycling leaders within their community. That's something that Jessica and their Outagamie counterpart are spearheading. And then we're gonna have to look at evaluating our signing municipality agreements with our RUBs essentially, and potentially propose some changes to better match the current operations. The program that we're operating under, the agreement we're operating under has been in place since the start of time. It doesn't necessarily match. It's kind of a cumbersome equation that we have to use. It doesn't match, the single stream system. So we'll give it another look, see if we can come up with a better agreement that would work better for us and the municipality. So. I guess 13 is a work in progress. We're going to be doing more work at Snell Road this fall, which will involve additional investigation and evaluation tasks in 2023 that are currently in this budget packet that we have. We'll look at, alternate, leachate extraction and source reduction, compliance at Snell Road versus having to turn on our horizontal groundwater extraction system again. What I did end up doing is rebudgeting this lift station rehab project at Snell Road. I don't think we're gonna be able to get it taken care of in 2022 here. So instead of going through the carryover process, which our finance department really doesn't care for, they would prefer that we rebudget it. So I think the cost estimates that were included in our 2022 budget were way too low based on the current costs of materials and construction. So we'll revamp that and then up that amount. It's essentially where all the leachate ends up at Snell Road landfill. It's an old deep manhole that some of the plumbing, the piping is corroding. It's a bad environment. So basically redoing the piping with stainless, coating the inside of the manhole, updating the metering equipment building. So it's something we'll rebudget in 2023. Same goes for 15-year, the storage building project. Initially, the thought was to have highway kind of prepare a pad at Snell Road, and then we just get someone to put up a pole, basically a pole building, so we can store equipment better inside at Snell Road. Well, because of construction costs, that project went from something we could do fairly easily to now having to basically hire an architect and put together construction plans and specs and bid it out. So that will be carried over into 2023 as well. And I've left this on here. I don't know exactly where this fits into the equation of things. As you can tell by the Huber facility property, we aren't really mowing it. It's gone natural. At some point, it would be nice to reacquire the rights to that, so we could potentially add it to any of our programs within the solid waste department. Whether we could, through master planning, include maybe a resource recovery type park over in that space, and also get the city of Oshkosh welcome sign installed. But I'm not exactly sure where that sits on the overall county. So.
I understand trying to get it somewhat under our control, but as we kind of learned with the sex building that they're putting there, the sex predator building, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, you want to state that.
For anybody listening, it's the sex predator facility over there, or whatever. Anyways, we kind of learned that we don't own none of this. The county owns it all, and they can just come and grab whatever was kind of assigned to us at will. So does it make a lot of difference to acquire it? Because they'll just reacquire it whenever they get a better plan.
So
So there's no answer to that question, I guess.
there really isn't one. I wish I had a better answer for that. So.
Well, maybe with a change of membership of the facilities committee, you're gonna have a better chance to get the kinds of results that are more amiable to our objectives. And frankly, there's been a substantial turnover in that committee membership. And I would hazard a guess that if we presented this concept again to the current members of the facility committee, we're going to have a much better result. And Jim, aren't you on the facilities?
Yes.
We've got our foot in the door, just like we had our foot in the door with Joey Finch in the park department. I think it's a whole new ballgame. I think that, we can raise our expectations, in many areas. Because frankly, from where I sit, there are a hell of a lot of competent new people in those 16 new supervisors. Many that ostensibly have had government experience, and are very active, in government boards. So, they're no strangers to the game. They just got a new playing field, in which they're acting. And, I'm quite, optimistic, about the direction of the county. If we can, rein in that energy.
I think if you come up, that comes with planning. If you come up with a rational reason and just try and reinforce that and whatever, I think.
We'll give them an extra $10,000, that's all.
Yeah, but it isn't, to me, it's not, it shouldn't be about money, it should be about utilization of that piece of property. And if somebody's gonna tell me it's gonna sit there like that because they don't agree, because they think Quick Trip's gonna come in there or whatever, I hope that went away, that thought process, but we'll find out.
Well, Quick Trip is 1 mile that way and 2 miles that way.
I don't bother them, they go right in the middle too.
So I guess that's what I had for, some of the goals, and may end up tweaking that a little bit based on our discussions later in the meeting here. So the next page here, 8 starts what we use for our highlights that addresses the significant changes to revenues and expenses. It also highlights the staffing in the department over the years. So we show at the first little paragraph here that changes to the table of organization, where we're converting one foreman to a supervisor and adding an equipment operator, so now we have 17 full-time. Again, our solid waste department operates as a proprietary type enterprise fund, and as such does not have a direct effect on the tax levy. So all our department expenses are supported by our user fees. There's no tax levy involvement. Based on what's included in our budget detail, we're showing a deficit of 409,672, and that's with the $2 per ton increase in the solid waste tipping fee, and no change in the recycling tipping fee. Excuse me, John. Yep, Paul.
Yeah, can I make a stupid recommendation? We should have another column in there for 2008 or 2009, when there were 26 employees in the solid waste department, so that people who read this narrative put it in perspective. We closed when 2010, 12.
Yeah.
Hey, we have half the employees today that we had when I came on the board back in 2006. And I don't think the new members of the board or the new members of the committee appreciate that. But if you see it in black and white, it'll really register. So I would make that tweak 2 cents.
Okay. Usually you put that in the graph form like that. Really
Just going by the formula. Finance department hands us, so.
Yeah. Funny, they only go back that far for that, but when they come with the table of organization report and whatever, and all the rest of it, they go back 30 years.
Right. So I don't know if you want me to go through this in detail. I don't know if there's some specifics. So what this this populates with is on page 11, the budget detail. What they do is they want you to look at what a significant change is, $5,000 and 5% of each line item. So what we tried to do, what Cassie did in the budget detail is highlight the items that hit that 5% and $5,000 change. And then we just provide an explanation on the highlights page. So it's a little different. Some of the other county departments add a column onto this budget detail and just type in a couple words to explain why it changed, but they don't have, 30 different changes every year. They only have maybe a couple little changes, so that's how they handle it. But as far as I know, Carol in finance is okay with us using this format again this year. So, I mean, the biggest ones are, the power sales is a huge one. We've got the way we're kind of organizing our waste, Winnebago County waste fees as part of the regional. We redid that last year where we have some of our alternate daily cover and beneficial use tonnages that are shared now in a separate category. We have out of county, we're tracking out of county that comes through our transfer station. Brown and Allegheny are doing the same, that's shared as well. So we have a category for that. We now have a category as of last year for handling the transfer station cost credits. Again, one thing that kicked in this year is we're now sharing in our solid waste transfer station operations and our hauling costs as part of the full regional system. It used to be that we would be completely responsible for the hauling and operations, but now we provide projections and we'll true up at the end of the year reconciliation where a certain component of our cost for running the loaders and compactors and then hauling the waste from here to Brown and Allegheny will be part of the total system cost. So we'll get into that a little bit more in the closed session. So we've created some new categories here that, are continuing to kind of evolve.
Could you just kind of explain the subtotal on interest? I'm seeing that the adopted is 203 and the revised is 203, but yet the projected is 500,000. Is that
Well, what doesn't show in this form is actuals.
okay?
So we get like 6 month year-to-date actuals, and it's actually, the projected is based on what we're seeing 6 months year-to-date. We're actually getting more interest back on the cash reserves than what they had anticipated. But we're getting less interest from our escrow account funds because the rate of return is less than what they had projected. So unfortunately, what doesn't show up in this report is the 6 month year-to-date, which we use to create our projection for 2020.
So
Could I just ask why that is not in here? That's a standard staple of any municipal budget I've ever seen, so I don't know why that's not in. Has it never, I thought it was in, and something was never in?
It shows up, it shows up, we have a column that we add for when we're entering things in munis, but what they want us to fit out for the report that goes into the.
So the county board, when they're looking at budgets, do the exact same thing, they have no frame of reference to what's actually going on for the first 6 months.
Not, other than just what we're showing as projected. I can ask Carol about that.
And I know the finance department is obviously, got a lot of that.
I don't think, I'd ask Cassie if you could maybe do a demo like that, because it was helpful seeing it in Munis and not seeing it here. It was kind of, like, it wasn't even an option to.
Yeah,
I
I
did
think
a
they would
box
have
to
to
check.
do it like what it means to get it added, because we generate this report and it doesn't even give you the option to add any columns for this report.
I'm not being, I'm not even, critical, I'm just.
But
I
it
guess
does,
that-
it would help
I was even.
fill in the blanks of why some of these projected numbers are.
Yep, and I guess my bigger question is, we've got substantial cash reserves. And everything I've seen in the last decade, what we're getting like next to nothing for interest. Are those investments such that as interest keeps climbing, that our rate of interest climbs, or are we locked into that 0.25% for
It's.
the
it's a
duration of the
mixed
year?
They've got a whole financial report. I think you're gonna be getting something here soon that shows, the 6-month year-to-date financials, which will show, you know, the short-term and the longer-term investments and their rate of returns, but,
Yeah, we used to have the finance director come
yeah.
and explain
Yep,
the
no,
way that
sat
works.
through a few of those, and I
Yeah.
was hoping he could come with good news once instead of.
Well,
We're not sure who's there, and we are now, but
not completely, there's still a vacancy, but,
As soon as we hire somebody, he'll come talk to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
right,
Give them a year, they're gonna keep wet.
Yeah.
there you go.
Well,
Maybe he
hire
can mow the
one
lawn
person.
while he's here.
Take that job on me back.
Say you
we come back and blow some lawn for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, again, we just try to address, some of these items, you know, the regular pay is gonna show an increase because we've added a position to our TO and, overtime is down because we tried to limit that, and if this person will allow us to reduce that to some extent. Add to the retirement system by adding another body, so all the wages and fringes we get from HR, they just automatically upload based on our table of organization and current pay and their projected increases. Get into travel, training, got a little bit of an overall increase, which is something that they always, the executive office tends to look at and scrutinize, but I think last year they were emphasizing employee development and training, so we kind of kept it on par with what we have for 2022. We're spending a little more, as you can see by the projection. We're still not quite to the point where we're using all that, but we're getting better. Capital section here summarizes the buildings, the improvements, and then the equipment. And so the office, not much there. Operating. Fuel prices are up, so our fuel costs are going to be a little elevated unless diesel prices change drastically. Operating licenses and fees are going down because air emissions are slowly going down with the lower gas generation, so.
Yeah, I see on page 15, you have motor fuel on there twice with two different, code numbers to them.
Yeah, the first one, 53,548, is for diesel fuel that we purchase and dispense from our own tank system here.
Okay,
The 73548 motor fuel is the gasoline that we get from highway department. So that's an interfund charge, so
okay.
the first one is diesel fuel, the second one is generally gasoline from the highway department. Good question. Yeah, and I guess, machine and equipment parts, as we're, ramping down engine generators, we're slowly, ramping down the cost of, buying parts and fixing equipment. I think we're in a, we plan to put a little bit more in equipment repairs, which is a vendor service, so we have, we're gonna have Fabric Cat help us out with the decoking operation on engine 2R here later this month. So we added a little more on the vendor, provided equipment repairs side of things for next year. Yeah, heat and power, obviously, utilities going up, so those changed a little bit. Water and sewer, what we're seeing is seeing some higher leachate strength, numbers, which drive up the waste charges on the wastewater treatment plant side of things. We're also probably looking at some increases in stormwater, so the combination of those two is bringing up, water and sewer. Majority of that is leachate disposal from our landfill sites.
How much do we pay for stormwater?
That's a good question. Off the top of my head, I would say probably in the $60,000 a year range between the sites and the shared property.
We're probably paying for where the trailer is bumped, and that's hard surface.
Right. Yeah, I guess legal services, I mean, I'm just guessing that some of this, potentially, from the Snell Road lawsuit could spill into 2023, as well as, additional assistance on the, renewable, contract negotiations, so I did reduce legal, but I still kept a fair amount in there for both the general admin and the landfill gas cost centers. Grounds maintenance went down quite a bit. I looked at that a couple different times. We just had a lot of projects planned in 2022, whether it be maintenance projects at Snell Road, additional investigation work for the groundwater, DOC investigation. There's a number of items that we had planned that maybe aren't quite being done to the extent, so that's why the projected is lower. And based on our estimates for next year, we're gonna be down a fair amount on the budget side of things. Architectural engineering costs are up. There's a couple of projects that were added. Additional evaluation work at the Snell Road site, so we're gonna be doing some more investigation work on the A2 area, which is the old incinerator ash portion of the site that was it was excavated and relocated to a line portion of the site. And there's still some concern from the DNR that is a source of some of the contamination that we continue to see. So there's gonna be some investigation work associated with that, and that's gonna contribute a fair amount in 2023 as far as taking all that data and compiling a report and a plan modification to make some proposed changes at the Snell Road site to the DNR. It's kind of up in the air because obviously the DNR has to agree with what we're gonna propose, and we still need to get together with them this fall to talk about what we're seeing and get their buy-in for the direction we're gonna go, but we'll touch on that a little bit later here. Hauling costs are way up. Hauling fees. The price of fuel, we have a certain price per load that we pay for materials that go to Allegheny and materials that go to Brown, and then there's a fuel peg or a fuel adjustment. I think the peg's at $2.50 a gallon right now, and so when you're at $5 a gallon, it's 30%, 25 to 30.
25 to 30% okay
Yeah.
right now for surcharge.
Yeah, so based on we try to be conservative here. This does come in and out now. It's shown on the revenue side, it's shown on the expense side, but because it's a system cost, but that's the reason for the big jump in budgeted hauling costs. Some of this data processing, professional services, increasing. I guess there's a process that we use for indirect costs, essentially that we pay for using other county departments. So from the exec's office to the court counsel to finance to human resources to IS. There's a process where they go through and look at all their work activities in each department, and then we pay based on how much we've used that department. Usually a 3-year lag. They look at 2020 finances for the 2023 budget. It's not exact science. You just come up with a projection. I make some recommendations, and then finance department distributes it to the departments. Corp counsel called me and wanted additional monies added to hers. So initially we had looked at 14,000 that would go to her department. She asked for 20. So okay, we'll give you 20. She's been helping out with a lot of projects of ours of late. So and yesterday I did hear from the executive that they're going to be asking for another 1,000 or 2,000 of indirect from solid waste because of the amount of time they're having to spend on some of our issues. So
Who's spending time on what? You don't know, I get it, yeah.
so the indirect costs went up this year, kind of across the board.
Yeah, where are the costs for the digital services?
The digital service.
Yeah, the Zoom and the extra records and where do we see that in the budget?
Zoom is under subscriptions.
Yeah, it's under subscription. It's $15 a month.
We can buy a
year.
year for like $175.
So
$175.
For the whole year for a subscription to use this.
yeah.
No, this we purchased separately. So we already purchased this for $1,000. The Zoom subscription, it's like an annual fee or you can pay monthly. And we have to pay that in order to be able to hold these meetings.
Okay,
Not a huge expense.
Mike, I got a question for.
take it out of the director's discretion.
On the finance side, I was always concerned with how the county associates costs on their end and distributes, is there a process for that? Or is it, does the finance department just take that?
The services that the county provides to the solid waste.
Yeah,
Internal services.
Yeah.
Whatever the powers that be want it to be. That's what I thought it was. But I mean,
We used to, we'd go into the budget meeting with the exec and whatever, and there would be all these, it's this and that and whatever and stuff, and John would always say, oh, how do you mean it's that? How do you, well, that's fine, it don't have to be that high, maybe it'll come down to this.
I mean, there's, look, in that case, there's definitely some truth to the idea that the finance department, the corp council, IS, these folks all provide support because the alternative is going out and getting all that stuff third party out in the marketplace, which is not, you want to be part of the county umbrella. That makes the most sense. And, costs are, look, inflation on that side, wages, they're trying to get people, they're only charging you 1,000. That doesn't even seem like.
No, they want an extra 1,000. So,
Well, I know that's not extra time. You mean, you're talking about like the county executives, okay, that's.
so
In the
I mean,
scheme of things,
overall,
it's not.
last year, 2022 budget was like 125,000 total for all the departments.
Yeah.
Now we're at closer to 150.
So, well, I mean, you just take that thing, take inflation, and that's. We're not, you know, it's not an unreasonable amount. I feel better now. Yes,
Good, thanks.
Thank you, sir. You're welcome.
Yeah, so then we get to the last page here, depreciation is where all the capital items hit, and that kind of bounces around depending on what's being added, what's coming off the books. It's down 159 for 2023. The engine 4 and 5, the latest hit with the waste heat recovery system and whatnot is coming off the books, so it's down, but with our capital that we're adding, we'll probably go up a little bit next year. So the bottom line, after we subtract out again, capital outlay, debt principal, long-term care liability, we're at the 409,672. And then this last, item 19 here is our list of capital items. We had mentioned, rebudgeting the storage, equipment storage building at Snell Road. So there's some, engineering, architect, and construction in there. Roughly a 20 by 40 pole barn. Snell Road lift station rehab. That was adjusted from 125 up to 200. There's engineering and construction and equipment in that line item. We've been talking about replacing the wood grinder for a number of years, and we're finally putting it in the budget. The current unit is a 2001, I believe. It is hanging on, but if we're going to continue to manage our yard waste programs for our municipalities and our users, we are in need of a new grinder. And it also, Kathy has been talking about, this is more of almost like a system with our regional partners. There's grinders that work for certain materials and don't really work for others. So I guess what we're looking at, and Kathy can talk a little bit more about it, is, you know, a grinder that specializes in wood waste. Gaming purchased a grinder a couple of years ago that was planned to work with C&D materials. I think they've tried doing some shredding of did they try mattresses with that one, or did they bring some other special?
I don't recall what they were doing for mattresses, but they do process C&D material with that, giving wood and like pallet material. They also process drywall and sell that back to a farmer in Winnebago County for conditioning soil. They also process vinyl siding, chip it down and sell it to a plastic recycler. And then they also do like bulky rigid plastics, like the carts that if they're damaged on the curbside, the community brings the carts in and then those can get shipped down as well. But they found that the shredder that they have for those materials does not work so well with wood yard waste materials. So, I have had communications with Allegheny County. We're looking at different options. So I'm not sure if we're gonna bring in a system, a grinder that the entire system can use. But certainly having, other options at partner counties may help us in the long run try to develop other programs here on our site. But we certainly do have a need for a wood grinder here, to help support our programs, our community collections, and then just being a part of that partnership with UW Oshkosh and providing them with that essential feedstock. They just don't get enough of it typically from their other partners to make the best methane production at their facility.
And if we're spending $500,000 on the grinder, do we have any kind of guarantee that Oshkosh is still going to be accepting the stuff or wanting the stuff from us, or can they decide to disband that
Well,
whole
they could
program
potentially
next
decide
year
to-
and?
But if we continue to collect yard waste, the DNR says we have to handle it. So
Okay.
however, we have to manage it. So if it means that UWO pulls out, now we have to manage it as a compost. And we need to process the brush
Process
that comes
either
in
way.
into a material that we can certainly compost. And that would include additional equipment and additional space to make sure that happens. So this is the least
Yeah.
costly option at this
Yeah.
point.
I mean, or grind it and, you know, send it up to Outaga, we may use it in their operations.
Yeah.
In landfill.
And is there any value to the grinder that you have?
Well, I
Well, it's gonna go in the,
trade-in value.
yeah, it's gonna
potentially.
go in the RFP where it'd be trade in, one slightly used 2001 more bar.
Well, I'm just-
Yeah,
Yeah.
You
the
know,
intent is
yeah,
to
You
write
kind
in
of chuckle at it, Winning County might very well use that for the next 10 years, because we don't, yeah, we don't collect as much waste as the county does, and I'm just,
yeah.
before you get the trade-in value of $10, you might wanna
Well, we'll
see whether it's
evaluate.
worth more than that.
Sure. we will
Plus some for the middleman.
Hey, Winchester probably love it as much as.
Isn't it, you know, like, there's been occasions where there've been storm damage and wherever it has stuff, municipalities
Well,
Right
use
now.
that.
Part of our-
You know, so it's not just strictly here, if municipality needs that, that's where that piece of equipment goes. Now, that municipality certainly could spend $500,000, but why do that when we had a rate? Didn't we?
yeah, back in the day, it used to go out on the road. And when storms came into play, we try to help out in different locations, but,
Remember when we were gonna kill all the ash trees?
oh, that's right.
They're all dead now.
They're all, I seen a lot of them alive yet. But they were worried about that, so it's like, sorry.
Okay, so, front end loader, we got another replacement front end loader that we're planning for 2023, 300,000. We'd like to buy a couple more 40 cubic yard roll off boxes for our drop off area here. Two of those are 12,000 a piece, 34,000. Estimates for the backup generator at the admin office here, 50,000, and at the transfer station, 70,000. We'll fine tune those numbers. We're gonna have, an electrical study done at both locations. And then we'll fine tune those costs when we get to that point. Looking at a snow pusher for the loader at 8,000, adding a V plow to our fancy dually pickup truck. With the salter, so we can plow and salt at the same time, $12,000. Transfer station ramp, there's some old drains that are in need of some repairs. So we're gonna make some improvements to a couple of the ramps over there in the drains that collect us the stormwater, $20,000. And then the big one is adding $1 million in the budget for upgrading landfill gas equipment here at Sunnyview. The pub equipment, with the big oversized compressors and the chiller and scrubber equipment and flare slag that's oversized. Its time is running short and it needs to be upgraded, whether we generate power or flare gas moving forward. So we're gonna look to evaluate options this fall. What I've included is some engineering dollars in the budget to put together bid documents, construction plans and specs. And the hope is to bid this out this fall. Start the process and then lead time, from what I heard from a conversation yesterday, is if we ordered equipment right now, it would be the middle of 2023 before we see it. So, you know, hindsight being 2020, this is probably something we should have looked at a couple of years ago, but we're gonna address it now and get our system set up to be efficient and reliable moving forward for the next 10, 20 year period. And again, all these, the larger capital items, typically what we do, if they're over $25,000, what we do is we go and you know, go through a bid process or a quote process. We bring it back to the solid waste board, here's the results and here's what we recommend, and have the board authorize the purchase. So we don't just go out and spend $500,000 on a wood grinder without, the board agreeing to that purchase based on the bids that we received. So we'll continue that process in 2023. And then the last item, the last page here that's included in the packet is our interest calculations. So we got a cash rate estimate from finance of 0.75%, based on $37.76 million. And a long-term care rate 1.2%, based on the 8.5 and the 1.8. The total is roughly 407,000. So a couple of years ago, finance created a new account code 48004 for long-term care. So we have those two entries for interest on the cash reserves and the long-term care 407. Any other specific questions on this? No?
There's a boatload of information.
Yeah. I guess what I wanted to just run through with you, quickly is the PowerPoint that some slides that folks put together for me. I guess proposed to add into this year's budget. Got it? Okay, so again, short-term needs later this year into 2023, looking at upgrades to the Sunnyview blower, flare, and gas to energy compressor systems, as well as Snow Road groundwater investigation response. Those dollars are already built into the packet of information that you have right now. What we're looking at, considering long-term that I didn't put in here initially, is for 2023 and even beyond, is solid waste campus master planning, which would be looking at the whole site here, this side transfer station, looking at different options for resource recovery, our HHW facility, those sort of things. Both has completed similar planning efforts at both Allegheny and Brown. There's a couple slides in here that show kind of the efforts that they've put forth. It's a planning document that changes over time. What initially might be planned might end up not actually happening down the road, but at least you got a good roadmap to work with. And it takes some expense to make that happen. And also adding in future landfill siting and evaluation. Right now we're locked into airspace through 2042, so we're in good shape, but down the road, we might need a spot to go with waste or other residual, and so we would like to start that process as well. So again, short-term needs, the Snell Road landfill, the NR 140 action, that's the groundwater contamination issue. They have estimated 75,000, and that is already in this budget packet for further evaluation of the data that's being collected in 2022. And again, the Sunnyview landfill flare compressor dryer system replacement. New flare to better operate with the lower flows, so we're not recirculating gas. New compressor dryer system that's sized appropriately to save energy and improve performance. The current chiller is being limped along, and hopefully we'll make it through the summer and can get a new system in place for next year during the warmer temps. The long equipment lead times, like I mentioned, probably looking at somewhere around the neighborhood of 9 months lead time. And again, this 120,000 engineering is included in this current budget package. So solid waste campus master planning. This is a photo of Outagamie County, specifically their resource recovery park that we reference every once in a while. How do we meet the needs of future and continue to improve our current operations? You know, as tonnage and traffic changes, resource recovery and material drop off. How do we make improvements to our current system? How do we plan for a transfer station that's better set up to handle our operations? You know, our HHW facility is located on the backside of our transfer station, and when it operates on Wednesdays and Saturdays, it's right in the path of where all the trucks are going. It's not a very safe setup. Let's look at some options to perhaps move that location. You know, I still think we want to consider closed landfill green space, whether there's some development opportunities. And so what both is estimated based on what they've done at Brown and Outagamie is 140,000. That is not included in this current packet, and that's something that I would like to recommend that the board consider adding. Again, it would just add to the deficit, and the expenses would be basically taken out of our retained earnings to pay for that.
Mike? Go back to the picture if you would, John. Interesting that it's Outagamie County.
Yeah.
They built a storm pond.
Yeah, they have.
Okay, is that, I hadn't even thought about that. Is that something that maybe we
Well,
could consider?
Yeah, well, I think if we do any more development at this site, the city is gonna require us to put a stormwater detention pond. as part
And
of
they,
that.
and I'm assuming they have, some components of their stormwater plan that if you have a stormwater facility of your own, you don't have to pay them.
Well, you'd receive some sort of credit.
Correct, yes, correct, yeah, so.
Yeah, so I guess the.
Should that be part of the study? I mean, whatever this study
Yeah,
is, that.
Yeah,
Okay.
they'll all be included in the equation now. In the upper right, just left of the video screen of us, that's the recycling. Right, that building right there is the recycling plant on the backside of the office. Their flare system is off to the right of the pond here, so that's their big above ground flare system that they have to as a backup for their gas to energy system. The building with the 6 doors in the middle part of the picture here is their old waste transfer station. So when they were operating as a transfer station hauling material here, that's what they used. Now it's kind of a catch-all facility for some of the different hard to recycle items.
Diversion program.
Diversion
C&D
program.
is
Yeah.
kept in that building, the drywall, screens are kept in that.
Yeah. And then this new, which looks like kind of an airstrip with containers on the side here, that's their new resource recycling, resource recovery park that they constructed a couple of years ago. It allows, you know, customers to come in with different materials, whether it's cardboard, wood, vinyl siding, metals, bulky materials. They've got color-coded dumpsters and signage to allow basically source separation by the users. So the goal is to create these dumpsters full of the appropriate materials, and then they're a lot easier to manage individually versus all in a big pile. So, but it does take, you know, it took cost, it takes effort, but it takes manpower to kind of man that. You can't just let people go out there by themselves, and so Outagamie kind of uses, I believe they use lead point labor. So they have their contracted labor staffing company that runs sorting in the MRF, in the recycling facility. They staff that, and then they've added staffing for this resource recovery part. The foam dome doesn't show up in this picture, but the foam dome is out there too. So this is Brown County's. So obviously the big gray space on the top right is the phase one landfill. That's closing in on having the left lift 10-foot layer garbage in place. We saw some interesting aerial photos at a meeting a couple weeks ago, so at some point we'll share those with you. But we're locked into, airspace through 2042 or beyond, based on how we're using the two landfill sites. It takes around 10 years of planning and permitting and construction to prepare a site for a landfill. So we're looking at even starting this process a little sooner rather than later. The post GIS department can do some relatively quick location screening, identify some properties that would fit an equation for development into a landfill site. Looking to do roughly $15,000 of initial screening this fall. Location, obviously, soil, site geology are all important. Distance from wetlands, private wells, surface water, there's all sorts of constraints that kind of limit where you can choose. Current infrastructure and accessibility would be considered, and then hopefully the goal would be to identify up to 3 properties that would be further evaluated in 2023. And what they're estimating is approximately $85,000 to do the detailed screening of sites, assist the board with doing the screening of sites. So this $85,000 is what I'm proposing to also add into the budget packet, not included in here right now. Again, it would add to the deficit for 2023, but that's what we have retained earnings for. That's what we've built up those funds for these sort of things, longer term planning. So I guess that's the extent of the both slides.
My concern is that both, we pay them $85,000 to tell us where a site would be possible, but if the people that own that property have no intention of selling it,
Well,
how does that?
yeah, that would have to get, you'd have to obviously involve that into the screening process to make sure it's a.
I mean, would that be part of the 85,000 that those properties could be purchased?
Yes.
Okay.
So. I don't know what else. I don't think I have anything else, as far as open session. I've got a few things I'd like to talk to you about in closed session. Unless there's any other questions on what's been presented so far? No?
Motion to move into closed session.
Second.
Motions were made and seconded. We need
You to read it now?
yes, okay, please.
Pursuant to section 19.851E Wisconsin statutes, at this point in the meeting, the board shall consider a motion to convene into closed session for the purposes of deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session in relationship to the 2022-2023 tonnage and revenue report and 2023 tipping fees. I need a roll call for that.
Pat,
Yes.
Doug,
Aye.
Jim,
Yes.
Mike.
Aye.
Paul,
Yes.
Jerry,
Aye.
Kevin.
Aye.
Howie,
Aye.
Shauna.
We are now in closed session.
Give me 1 second.
Does that permit anybody? Hello?
As we're recording.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think we'll just need a motion to adjourn. Then.
Next meeting.
Future agenda items,
Next meeting.
Yeah, next meeting is.
August 17th.
August 17th. Okay. Unless something blows up.
Made a motion? I made a motion.
Second, motion made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, thank you.
Good luck.
Nice.